You're listening to Better Live Than Dead on the Gear Radio Network.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another BLTD Extracast. Today I am joined by the BLTD Sports.com, BLTD senior music correspondent, also our resident Panthers fan, and he just also happens to be the guitarist for your favorite band, Between the Buried and Me. We have Paul Waggoner on the line. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I'm excellent. I was going to say, I didn't forget about the senior music correspondent. You still have that prestigious title. I'm not sure if it's brought you any job opportunities yet, but I promise you in the future it will at some point in time.
It's on my resume and it's ready. It's ready for something. I'm not sure what, but it's on there.
Exactly. That's what I tell people about podcasting. You know, I do it. It's there. It may not do anything for me, but it's there. As long as it's there, I mean, It means something.
Yeah.
For those for those out there with the Twitter, you can follow him on Twitter at PaulBTBAM. Now, the reason we have Paul here today, as I mentioned, the Carolina Panthers are in the Super Bowl. Super Bowl 50 on February 7th in Santa Clara, California at Levi Stadium. Carolina Panthers, the Denver Broncos. Paul, first off, it's been, I mean, Carolina has handled their opponents in the playoffs. But how have the past few weeks been for you since the season ended and now heading to the Super Bowl? What has your range of emotions been like?
Well, you know, I'm sort of a cautious optimist when it comes to any team I like, really. And it's no different for the Panthers. I feel like at this point, I mean, I think they're the best team in the league. But you know, there's certainly there's a level of nervousness before every game, especially in the playoffs, obviously, because it's win or go home. So, you know, I felt like, man, if we could get past Seattle, we were golden. You know what I mean? And when we won that game, I felt really good. But then, gosh, you know, the Arizona game creeps up, and I'm nervous. I'm like, oh man, I hope Carson Palmer doesn't just pick us apart. You know, we're kind of banged up in the secondary. You know, and then we just absolutely put it on them from start to finish, basically. And so now, you know, I'm kind of in that same mindset for the Super Bowl. I'm thinking, man, if we can just put some pressure on Peyton Manning and get a couple hits on him, we'll be good. But then there's that part of me that's like, man, I hope he doesn't just pull out some sort of weird trick out of his pocket and just pick us apart. So there's a little bit of nerves, but you know, I honestly feel like it's our game to lose. I mean, we should win that game, you know. And
now before we get to the Super Bowl talk, kind of just an introduction, but before we get to the Super Bowl talk, I want to go back. We talked in mid-November, and when we spoke, Panthers were undefeated, and I asked you, I said, you know, Paul, do you believe Cam Newton is the MVP of the league right now? You said you don't think that he was the MVP of the league, but now, hindsight being 2020, we look back at what Cam Newton did since we last talked. It's almost like Cam heard the podcast and said, you know what, Paul, I'm going to show you, because you know what? Cam Newton led the Panthers to a 7-1 record, 2,017 passing yards, 21 touchdowns to only 1 interception, 293 rushing yards, and 5 rushing touchdowns. Do you now believe, Paul, that everything with the whole picture being painted, the season's over, regular season's over at least, do you believe that Cam Newton is the most valuable player of the entire National Football League?
Absolutely, he is. Absolutely. But, you know, I have to say that, you know, the last time we talked, I truly, I don't think I would have changed my mind in hindsight. I think at that time, I did not think he was the MVP. I thought he was having a great year.
I was going to say,
like you said.
Sorry, at that time, just to throw in there really quickly, at that time, just for everybody's remembering in hindsight, the reason I'd asked you, I remember this, is because they were 7-0. And it was one of those things where, like, Twitter was saying, hey, maybe this guy's the MVP. And TV was, you know, everybody on TV, you know, Tom Brady, whatever, you know, this and that. And I'm like, maybe there's a chance. So I guess, you know, I wanted to throw that in there to kind of pat myself on the back for getting that out there quick.
No, yeah, 100%. Now, you know, I felt like at that time, you know, even though the Panthers were undefeated, I felt like, you know, Tom Brady at the time, and even at that time, maybe somebody like Andy Dalton was probably putting up statistically better numbers as a quarterback. But since then, obviously Cam has just gotten even better, and then the other guys slipped a little bit. Dalton, of course, got banged up, and the Patriots got banged up, and it affected Tom Brady's stats and stuff. So I think a few things happened in that time since then that have really kind of made it apparent that Cam Newton is, at this point, I don't even think it's an argument. I think he is the MVP. He's going to be the MVP, and that's that. He just kept it up. He just kept it up throughout the year and actually got better as the year went on. He didn't turn the ball over. He was a dual threat, obviously, as much as ever, and he just really, to me, he just kept pushing, and proved himself to be the MVP of the league. And but at the time, I still at that time I didn't think he was MVP worthy yet.
The most impressive thing to me about Cam Newton is you always waited this season for the other shoe to drop, and even when the Panthers lost their first game, Cam Newton didn't falter. He kept his head up, kept eyes on the prize, moving forward. And I mean, I don't know if it's some sort of self-confidence, or I guess if you want to call it swagger, but he's got something going on this year, and I'm not sure what it is. But if we could figure it out, I would love to get some of that, because he's just got whatever it is this year he's doing. He just knows exactly what he wants and how to get it and how to make it happen. And it's been, not being a Panthers fan, but it's been fantastic to watch Cam Newton develop, kind of take that step to the next level this year. The thing that we've tried and we've wished and we've hoped for in past years with Cam Newton, we're finally seeing. It's almost like we're seeing him finally unlock his full potential. And it's actually scary because, you watch like Steph Curry, you watch Steph Curry, not talking about his brother. You watch Steph Curry in the NBA and watch what he does, and you're like, damn, this guy is like dominant. Like, there's nothing that can stop him. I feel the same way watching Cam Newton in the National Football League, where you just watch him and you're like, okay, this is where he's going to fall, and then he doesn't. And then you're like, okay, well, no, okay, maybe he got lucky there. He'll fall here. Nope, he keeps going. And obviously now, like we said, the Panthers are headed to the Super Bowl in a couple of weeks.
Right. I mean, I think, the biggest thing to me, just watching him play over the last few years, I think this year he just grew up a little more, matured as a person and as a player. I think the one thing with quarterbacks like Cam, guys that are sort of praised for their athleticism, is that they tend to just rely on that, and kind of not, maybe refuse, or maybe they're just not capable of getting or getting better in other facets of the game. And I think with Cam, like, sure, he has the athleticism. He's 6'5", 250. He's a freight train. But he got smarter, and he bought into what the coaches were preaching, and he became a really good pocket passer. Everybody knew he had arm strength, but his accuracy improved. His reads improved. He's not making stupid passes anymore, although he did make one against Arizona, but we'll let that one slide. But he's not he's not throwing these errant passes that end up being interceptions. And I think that's the biggest thing. I think he got smarter as a player, and he clearly works on his game. He's not just content with being an athletic quarterback who runs the ball every time there's trouble. He's willing to stand in the pocket. He's willing to make a pass as opposed to try to make a heroic run. So I think he just he's bought into what the coaching staff is trying to get him to be, and he's obviously reaping the benefits. So I think he would say the same thing. I think a lot of credit goes to Ron Rivera's leadership and the staff who allow him to be him, to be the Cam Newton that we all kind of either love or hate, with the dabs and the the sort of flamboyant personality. So they allow him to be that, but at the same time, the guy wants to win, and so I think people kind of sometimes forget about that he's an ultra hyper competitor, and and he's out there to improve and get better and win games. And that's what I think changed from previous years to this year. I think he just took that extra step.
Now, you mentioned a little while ago that you're worried that Peyton Manning might pull something out of his hat coming in the Super Bowl. But now, just looking at the statistics here, Peyton Manning has only completed 55.1% of his passes this postseason for a little under 400 yards and only 2 touchdowns sprinkled in those 2 games. Now, can Peyton Manning, can his mediocrity be enough for Denver if their defense is not great in the Super Bowl against the Panthers?
No, I don't think his mediocrity can be enough, but there's this part of me that just thinks, man, what if he just has that one fluke game, where he's just on fire and something, so as a Panthers fan, that's what I'm worried about. If I weren't a Panthers fan, I would sit here and tell you there's no way in hell that Denver can win that game with the way Peyton Manning's been playing. And I feel like there's a massive mismatch in the trenches as far as the Carolina defensive line goes against Denver's O-line. I feel like we should get tons of pressure on Peyton up front with K'Wan Short and Charles Johnson and, Coney Ely. All these guys should be able to theoretically get pressure on Peyton Manning without having to, bring blitzes very often. So, my brain tells me there's no way that this guy can put up a huge game against that Carolina defense. But, being a Panthers fan and that sort of cautious optimism that creeps in there, and I'm thinking, man, what if he just, I sure hope he doesn't, do some kind of crazy, just pull out one last magic trick to end his career. So that's sort of my fear, I guess. But, on paper, Carolina has the advantage. So we'll see how it plays out, I guess. I guess that's why they play the game.
Absolutely. I was going to say, Peyton Manning has hinted strongly this is his final game, so maybe he can pull something together. But we've watched Peyton Manning this season. He's not anywhere near the same player he was, and barring a medical miracle, I don't think Peyton Manning is going to be able to have a fantastic game. He's going to have to rely on the rest of his team to kind of drag him along. And it's one of those things with Peyton Manning where Gary Kubiak really made his bed, because if you go with Brock Osweiler and you lose before the Super Bowl, you should have started Peyton. But now if you bring Peyton in and you don't win the Super Bowl, you gave yourself the best chance to win and you still couldn't win. And it looks like for Denver, this could be the last hurrah of this Denver squad, because you've got Peyton Manning potentially retiring. You've got guys like Von Miller. He's a free agent potentially after this season. You can a lot of that Denver Broncos team could look different next season, and
right.
it may be a rallying point for the team to say, hey guys, we've got one last shot. But like you said, Paul, I'm completely on the same page with you. I think the Panthers are leaps and bounds a better football team. Which brings me to my next point here. It's injuries. I know the Panthers are dealing with some injuries on the defensive side of things. Even though they are the better team, they are banged up. We saw that Jared Allen has a broken bone in his foot. He's going to try to play in the Super Bowl. Didn't play in the championship game. He's going to try to play in the Super Bowl. But the one guy I want to talk to you about right now, Thomas Davis, broke his forearm against the Cardinals. Had surgery that night. He says he's going to play in the Super Bowl. Even if he's limited, that's still huge. But the question I have for you, Paul, how big of a loss would it be for this Panthers defense if Thomas Davis cannot suit up for the Super Bowl?
Oh, it'd be huge, no doubt. He's sort of he's had an unbelievable year, obviously, and finally selected to a Pro Bowl, although he's deserved it in years past too, I believe. But yeah, that would be a massive loss. So I think, Carolina fans are just hoping that he plays, even if it's in a limited capacity, just to have him on the field, even if it's for only, half the snaps. His leadership, obviously, and the way he plays alongside Luke Kuechly is huge. I think he's going to play. I mean, he's a tough guy. This guy's come back from 3 ACLs. I mean, he's perhaps the toughest guy in the league when it comes to bouncing back from injury, and he has said on record that he is not going to miss the Super Bowl. So I think he's going to play. I do think we're deep at that position. I mean, we have Shaq Thompson, played extremely well against Arizona, I thought. I mean, he was covering Larry Fitzgerald for a good portion of that game. So we have depth there at linebacker. So I'm not too worried about it from sort of an X's and O's standpoint, but we do need his leadership probably more than anything. I think he brings something intangible to that team on defense. And I think if he's, like I said, even if it's in a limited capacity, if he's active for that game, that's huge for the Panthers. And if he's not active, I think that's huge in a negative way for the Panthers. I think you got to get him on that field, even if it's just for a few snaps.
All right. So the next question I have for you here, blank type of question here. We'll do it for both teams. First off, for Denver. Denver will walk out the Super Bowl champions if blank.
I think if that defense can force turnovers, if they can force turnovers and give Peyton Manning a short field to work with, I think they can win the game.
And as for Carolina, the Carolina Panthers walk out Super Bowl champions if blank.
If they don't turn the ball over.
That's fair. I mean, that's
yeah.
They kind of go together, which is nice, but it makes sense. Yes.
Yeah.
I think for me personally, you go first, Paul.
Okay. In this playoff run, which is in large part been pretty dominant, with the exception of the second half against Seattle. But the biggest thing I think is that they take care of the football. They don't turn the ball over, and they turn you over. You know what I mean? They force turnovers through interceptions, through forced fumbles, and things like that. So I think the turnover battle is huge for Carolina. They feed off of it emotionally. Their defense is, when they force turnovers, I think it feeds the offense. And on the other side, if we take care of the football, we're built to drive down the field. We're built to score points. So unless a turnover sort of thwarts that, then I think we can be a really dominant team when we take care of the football.
Now, for me, I think with Denver, their defense needs to be I know their defense has been fantastic and continues to be fantastic, but against an offensive juggernaut like the Panthers have been, I would say Denver's defense needs to be nearly flawless if they want to win the Super Bowl, because obviously if Peyton's going to make mistakes, Peyton's going to get sacked, he's going to get put on the ground. We've seen that happen this postseason. But if Denver's defense can play impeccable football, I think Denver gives themselves the best chance to win. As for Carolina, I know their defense, because obviously they say, the saying is defense wins championships, but when it comes to a one-game playoff where you need to be the best, defense does win championships. But I think for Carolina, the biggest key to the game for them is getting their offense rolling early. If they go, one quarter or they go a half without, scoring a touchdown, it may be curtains for them. Even if Denver doesn't play great, it just may be a psychological thing where if they come into the game and they can't score, it may just tear them apart, and that may be the downfall of them. So I think if, like I said, Denver's defense, Carolina's offense, whichever one gets rolling first and is more effective, I think that will be the difference in the Super Bowl.
Absolutely. And I think, Carolina likes to come out, and this year is probably a little different in this way, but Carolina likes to come out really aggressive offensively to start games. They get more conservative with the play calling as the game progresses, especially if they build a sizable lead, as evidenced by the Seattle game, obviously. But, I think that's huge. I think if they can build some momentum offensively, kind of get that defense back on their heels a little bit, do not allow the it's like an arm wrestling match. You want to get over the top first, you know what I mean? And And I think that offense, the Carolina offense, has to do that against the Denver defense, and that early momentum, whichever way it's established, I think will probably foreshadow the results of that game. So yeah, I agree 100%. It's all about, can the Carolina offense get going early, and then on the flip side of that, can the defense get going early? Can the defense maybe force an early turnover? Force 3 and outs on the first few possessions, because Carolina is an emotional team. They feed off of success. You know what I mean? If they can get a stop early, if they can get a touchdown early, if they can get an interception early, they really thrive on that. And so yeah, 100%. Agree. I think the offense has to get going early, and yeah, that's it. If we can get some points on the board early against that defense, I think I'll feel pretty good about it.
Well, and to go a little deeper on what you said, we know the narrative at this point. Peyton Manning's, I think it's his 18th season. He's played a ton of NFL games. We know the narrative on Peyton Manning. He can't win the big game. He's only done it once in his career. So I feel all you can rattle Manning and get in his head early. That's also very important, because like we said, we've seen the wounded duck throws all season. We've seen Peyton Manning grimacing and limping around and missing games because he's hurt. We've seen it all happen this year. But Peyton Manning is one of the greatest quarterbacks ever. Not better than Tom Brady, but that's a different conversation for a different time. But he's still one of the best. And you never want to let great quarterbacks get in a good rhythm. And I feel like even if Peyton Manning is been struggling all season, like you said, Paul, there's still a part of me that thinks, hey, maybe he can, if he gets hot, he can string together a couple good drives, and that's all that matters for Denver's offense and for Denver's game plan. So try to get in his head, put him on the ground as much as you possibly can, put as much pressure as you can on him. Don't let him get comfortable, because if he gets comfortable, it doesn't matter if it's Peyton Manning. If Peyton Manning's at 100% or 75% or 50%, he'll pick you apart if he's feeling comfortable in that pocket.
100% agree. No quarterback in that league likes to get hit. I don't care who you are, and especially a guy like Peyton Manning, as old as he is and as brittle as he seems to be these days. So yeah, if you can put him on his butt a few times early, and even if you just get in his face, make throws difficult, put it in his head that, hey, that defensive front is coming after you. You know what I mean? And we're coming after you every time. Yeah, I think he'll start to sort of, be like, oh boy, here we go again, kind of thing. So, yeah, it's that's important. Like you said, he's a rhythm passer. Carson Palmer is like that too. A lot of quarterbacks in this league they're rhythm passers. They like to nickel and dime you, and a few times for some first downs, and then take some shots down the field. And if you can sort of disrupt that rhythm, which the Panthers did with Carson early, that's huge, and that can be the game, really. So, yeah, 100% agree. So got to get to him.
The moment we all came here for today, Paul, the prediction time.
Yep.
I want to hear. And you can give me a score if you want to, if you're feeling good about it. If you want to just give me a yes or no, that's also good too. Who do you have winning Super Bowl 50 in a few weeks?
All right, you ready?
I'm ready for it.
I'm going Panthers. Duh, right?
I'm
Carolina
shocked.
Panthers are going to, yes, shocking. Panthers are going to win this game. The final score is going to be 31-14.
You know what's really weird is I really wish that you would get out of my head, because I got to be honest with you right now. I was sitting here just thinking about it, because I looked at my phone and I checked, and I was like, okay, now we're going to move on to the predictions. And I thought a score in my head. And I'm going Panthers all the way. There's no doubt about it. But I thought 30-13. So please.
Same margin. Wow.
Please get out of my head.
I think you're in my head, brother.
Hey, you're the Panthers fan, so I guess we could do that. It's no problem. No problem, man. I'll tell you what, I've honestly, I've selfishly, I've been rooting for the Panthers because I wanted to talk to you again about football, because I do enjoy it. But also being able to I enjoy because obviously I like the Bills. Honestly, to be completely serious, I haven't watched football in 4 months. But Bills are terrible. So, it's one of those things where if I can see like friends of mine get like really excited about sports, I'm like, that's awesome. That's great. That's cool. So like I see the Panthers winning and I'm like, oh man, Paul must be thrilled right now. So that's why I'm so excited to talk to you. So like,
dude, not only am I thrilled, but just the city of Charlotte, it's just cool, because I was born here, raised here, I live here. Just to see the city like embrace the team and the team embrace the city, and it's just created this really cool, culture, and it's been a heck of a journey this season. But for a fan like me, who's been a fan of the team since they came into the league in the mid '90s, this journey's been 20 years. So it's just cool to have it sort of build up to this. And the city is just loving it, man. So it's just a cool thing. I don't think we're considered really, a football town by many people, but it really is, and this is a Panthers city, and people they're just stoked, man. I mean, everywhere you go, it's just Panthers, so it's.
I was going to say one more victory. One more victory.
One more victory, man. And that'll be obviously the first major professional sports championship that the city of Charlotte's ever seen. So, it's huge. And we've been there before. We were there 12 years ago against the Patriots and lost a heartbreaker. And it stings, man, to get there and then lose. So I think this time I'm hoping we have a little better luck this time. So, yeah, man, we're excited. And I will say this about your Bills. The Bills are not a terrible team. They just need a quarterback. I think they're a quarterback away from being a wild card playoff team. So
I think the problem with the Bills, they can get by with Tyrod Taylor. I like what he's doing, but I think the problem is defensively and what they're going to do. And this is just a quick little nugget for you and everybody out there. This is how I feel about the Bills, at least. They're going to do what they did what Rex Ryan did in New York. They're going to go out and get a bunch of mediocre players. But they can fill roles perfectly. So they'll play like with baseball, how baseball you have platoon outfielders, like this guy plays great against lefties, this guy plays great against righties. That's what the Bills are going to do. And that's how the Bills are going to get better. They'll go out and get guys who, okay, you play, you rush the quarterback. That's all you do. You're like a 2-down linebacker, and then this guy will be the other 2 downs, and then this guy will play nickel, this guy will play dime, whatever it may be. That's what they need to do, because the problem last year was they have a lot of talent, but they didn't mold the defense to that talent. So you're like, hey, Mario Williams, play linebacker, and he's like, haha, no, I'm not playing linebacker. I'm one of the best pass rushers in the league since I've gotten into the league.
Right.
I'm not playing linebacker. And I mean, he's got a point, but that's a lot of the reason why he's going to be a free agent coming up in a few weeks. But that's what I think. It's going to be like an addition by subtraction move for the Bills. I mean, go out, get another wide receiver to go opposite Sammy Watkins to take some pressure off of him. To reshore up the offensive line, don't let Cordy Glenn, don't let Richie Incognito go. Re-sign those guys, and then build off of what you have, because that's what the Bills haven't done for years. Like you want to build a football team. Look at what the Panthers have done. Look at how they've done it. That's what you want to do. You don't want to keep adding young players and saying, okay, well, your first contract is up. You can leave. We'll go get another guy. No, keep those guys. Build off of those guys. That's what the Bills need to do. That's what they haven't done for a very long time.
Mm-hmm. And the Panthers have just really done well in the draft. They've just drafted guys that guys like Luke Kuechly. I mean, I don't think people knew he was going to be a great player, but I mean, he's arguably the best defensive player in the league. And so they got him. They drafted Josh Norman, who's ended up, now people are talking about him. He may be the best cornerback in the league. They've really done well in the draft, and they tend to draft and sign high character guys that they don't get in trouble off the field. They're football players, and that's a big thing. When you can draft guys that are committed to being the best they can possibly be, that's a big thing. But ultimately for the Bills, I mean, I do feel like in today's league, you can't just get by with a mediocre quarterback. You have to have a guy who can put points on the board. At the end of the day, I mean, I know they say defense wins championships, but you got to score. You got to score some points, and I'm not sure they have that guy. I don't think Tyrod Taylor's that guy. So I personally believe that, defensively they'll be fine. Rex Ryan, I think he's a good defensive coach when it comes to schemes and stuff. So, I think they'll be fine defensively. I just think they're going to have to figure out a way to get somebody, whether it's in the draft or whatever, that can be their quarterback. They need a franchise quarterback.
We've got Rex Ryan. We've got Rob Ryan now. You'll probably be seeing the Buffalo Bills.
You got the Ryan.
Yeah, you'll probably be seeing the Buffalo Bills on Hard Knocks in a couple months.
Yeah,
so
I think they're hiring
the Buffalo Bills.
I think Buddy Ryan's coming in too as the honorary water.
He
water
might.
guy.
He might have to at this point. I mean, it's almost
Get the whole clan in there.
Now, it seems like
they can somehow get Matt Ryan to play quarterback.
You know what? There have been some rumors that Matt Ryan may be on the outs in Atlanta. So maybe just the Buffalo Ryans. That's because for a while they were the Buffalo Williams. That's where they had everybody on defense was a Williams. Get all the Ryans.
Yeah.
Just hook them all up.
Yeah.
Now the
we'll
good part
see.
for you.
I'm pretty. Go ahead.
I was going to say. Well, I was going to. I want to hear what you have to say about the Bills. I like people talking about the Bills. I'll listen to this all day.
No, I'm not. I mean, I'm not a hater. I like the Bills. I actually think, part of me, because I hate the Patriots so much, so I kind of root for other teams to do well. That can pose a threat to the Patriots. I would love to see them dethroned. So yeah, I mean, I'm all for the Bills. I'm all for the Dolphins. Let's get these teams good. You know what I mean? So I think the Bills are on the rise, man. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised in the year.
I got to the point. I got to the point this year where I've gotten so sick of football because it's the same thing for me. It was the same thing every single week. I just said flat out. I was like, you know what? I'm not watching the Bills again. I'll pay attention. I'll keep an eye on it because obviously, I do the sports stuff and all the sports thing. And I was like, well, maybe I'll keep an eye on it, but I'm not going to watch until the Bills make the playoffs. So you know what? Because I've been a Bills fan since the Music City Miracle. I didn't know then when I was a child what I was getting myself into, and now that I'm there, it's tough. It's really painful to watch the Bills every year go 6-10, 7-9, 8-8, and just fail to live up to any expectation. So it's. I just said, screw it. I'm taking some time off. I'll be back if you make the playoffs. If you don't, whatever. But I've got a good feel about the Bills coming up, but expectations. You always get that feeling in the pit of your stomach where you're like, yeah, my brain says yes, but my heart says no. That's where I'm at right now.
Well, yeah, and I can get that. I mean, in the historical context, being a Bills fan is tough just because of the success they had without ever actually winning the big one, and the disappointment, that you suffered in the Super Bowl. So there's some historical context there that probably makes it a little more frustrating than maybe it should be for you as a Bills fan. But just as a third party, I'm just telling you, I think they're on the rise. I think they're going to be a good team next year.
I was going to say, I'll take
if they can land that quarterback. Yeah, if they can land that quarterback, man, I'm telling you, they may be a playoff team.
Well, yeah, I was going to suggest too, if you get a chance, if you get a free moment, it's a little lengthy, but I don't know if you've seen it yet or if you've heard of it, but on Netflix there's that ESPN 30 for 30 called Four Falls of Buffalo. That is a fantastic documentary, a look into the kind of the psyche of a Bills fan of the Bills of the 90s. It's really good if you get a chance to check it out.
I will definitely check it out for sure.
I want to mention too, real quick, it almost seems like it worked out for you pretty well. Like you subconsciously knew the Panthers were going to make the Super Bowl because you're not working.
That's true. Yeah. No, we made for sure that we were going to be home for the Super Bowl. I mean, I'd want to be home for the Super Bowl whether the Panthers are playing or not, but yeah. I guess it definitely worked out this time.
I do want to mention really quick before we let you go, Paul. We'll talk about your day job for a second. I just want to mention to everybody listening in podcast land, Between the Buried and Me goes back on the road to Osaka, Japan on February 16th. Then they start a U.S. tour on March 4th in New Jersey with August Burns Red, The Faceless, and Good Tiger. Check out BetweenTheBuriedAndMe.com for more dates and tickets, ticket information, and more info. Or check out the website and check the website out. It's a cool website.
Yes, it is a cool website. And thank you for plugging the the Japanese tour. I'm sure all your Japanese listeners are dying to know that information.
Dude, I've had some listens in some weird places. I don't mess around anymore because I've had some, seriously, I've had some, you check out the stats and you're like, I don't know how you got my podcast in wherever you are, but thank you. I really appreciate it.
Awesome.
Plus, I'm always trying to hook up. I'm always about the free plugs. I know there's a lot more powerful people out there plugging the tour, but you know what? I'll do my part.
No, that's awesome. Thank you very much for doing
take the time. No problem. You take the time to join the podcast. I take my time to plug your stuff. I don't care. It's all good.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man.
Obviously, too, as we mentioned, that check out Parliament Coffee Roasters as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, sir.
I don't forget.
Thank you, sir.
You're good people. I've
got a checklist here of all the things that you're supposed to plug, and so now you've done it. You've plugged the two things that I do in life.
Well, and you're also the senior music correspondent for BLTDsports.com. So I'd make sure to
that too. I already checked that off, though. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm hitting them all. I'm just going back around in the carousel, just making sure I got everything.
Yes. You got it.
Want to mention again at Paul BTBAM on Twitter. You're going to want to follow because I'm sure you'll be very active during the Super Bowl. I want to say too.
I'm going to try to be, but
I'm
just kind of a nervous wreck. So.
Well, that's what Twitter's for.
Well, yeah. For me, it's not. I kind of go into hiding when I'm that nervous or that uptight.
Usually, what I do is I just tweet out random letters and emoticons and exclamation points, and that's usually how you can tell if I'm in a pickle or like just freaking out.
Yeah.
But I do have to say, the one thing I did want to mention, I do want to get a video of you dabbing if the Panthers do win the Super Bowl. We have to make that happen.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely,
have
man.
to.
I mean, my wife's always filming me do stupid things during the games, and she often posts it on Instagram without my permission, so I'm sure you'll see something.
That's what being married is all about these days.
Absolutely. Just being humiliated publicly.
Permission to post things on Instagram without any permission at all.
Exactly.
But I want to say again, Paul, I wish you the best of luck to you and your Panthers. And all the Broncos fans out there, I'm not being biased. Best of luck to you as well. We're just not talking to a Broncos fan. But best of luck to the Broncos and Panthers in the Super Bowl coming up in a few weeks. Paul, thank you again for joining me. It's been fantastic. It's been a great time. I'm sure we'll talk again sometime soon about more sports. And now only if the Hornets could get it together and do something, we could have more fun Charlotte sports to talk about.
We're on a roll right now, man. We won 4 out of 5.
Got to keep it going, man.
Yeah, keep it going, baby. Just won in double overtime to the Kings. DeMarcus Cousins scored 56 points on us.
Yeah. That was a fantastic game.
But we won. So, yeah, we'll gladly give DeMarcus 56 points.
As long as you get the victory at the end, it doesn't matter how many points you score.
That's right, man. He didn't score enough. He needed 58.
Exactly. I want to thank you again, man, for joining me today. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into the BLTD Extracast. I am sure the Super Bowl will be a fantastic one. Peyton Manning versus Cam Newton, Broncos and Panthers, February 7th. Super Bowl 50. I don't know if I mentioned that, how many times I've said that, but Super Bowl 50, if you don't know by now. Again, Paul, enjoy it. I'm sure we'll be in touch sometime soon.
Thank you so much.
And thank you again for joining the podcast today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.